I was going to cover the Atlanta Falcons, Lions game last night, but I decided not to for obvious reasons. You saw the situation that happened with Maurice Norris. Hopefully, everything is okay with him. He did leave with knowing that his he had feeling and movement in his extremity, so that's a good thing. But you know, when I look at stuff like this, it kind of makes me think about how I feel about football in general. Sometimes I love watching the sport, and it's not just sometimes, probably like 90% of the time. But the 10% has me thinking about stuff like this. At the end of the day, these guys are they're human. They just want to play the sport that they love. And you see how hard they go on the field. And it's a beautiful thing to see guys actually give their all, using all their strength and might to actually play this sport. But when stuff like this happens, it really makes me think about, you know, the sport in general. I love watching it. I love playing it at the time I played it. But stuff like this, I guess when you get older, you start looking at things in different perspectives. And I don't know how I will feel 10 years from now. I don't know if I'll feel the same because I am a huge football fan, but you really hate seeing people get injured and stuff like this happen. I mean, I remember when I saw other injuries. I think it was another lion that got hurt like this way back. I think his name was Javid Best or something like that. He was scoring a touchdown, and you saw something like this happen where he clinched up, and then we all know what happened with Tua and all this other stuff. And I look at this and I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure if I get really that excited for the game anymore because one play and stuff like this happens and it kind of just take the air out of the entire room. Now don't get me wrong, I love the fact that the football is here. I love watching some of these players and I love to see what the Falcons actually did. I think overall the team looks different. The team looks good, even with Easton Stick out there, and then you had the backup running backs, and you saw some of the receivers, and we actually got to see some of the rookies play. It was awesome to watch, but it I think at this time in my life, or this time, in this season of this time of the year, I start thinking about stuff like this because we just had Damar Hamlin situation not too long ago. Then you see other players get injured and rocked, and like I said, we talked about Tua, and we go all the way back with Javid Best. And as rare as this stuff happens, you still like think about it. Hey, one time is one too many. And I love the sport. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like I'm backing away from watching because I'm gonna still cover it, but keeping this stuff in the back of your mind, it makes you think like, man, this kind of sucks. You know what I mean? You just don't want to. To be honest, I really didn't even want to talk about football, you know, for the rest of the night. And I kind of don't want to talk about it now because like this is a 24-year-old kid that just want to play football. You know what I mean? I think right here it said he came from Fresno State. He signed as an undrafted free agent. You got to understand, like this kid was not drafted. He's trying his best to make the team. He's not one of these guys that's flashy. He just wants to play the sport that he loves and make a living off of it. And now I don't know. I don't think anybody knows right now what his future going to be. I mean, everybody has that dream to put on that helmet and play football, and they want to be the best they can be on the field, but they know what the injuries and they know what they're getting into, and then they see stuff like this. I mean, you see stuff like this happen, or they go through something like this, and everything just changes in a blink of an eye. you know, this is why I commend people who play football. This is why I commend people who play contact sports. I commend people who are out there, putting their lives on the line every day. It's bigger than football. You got to understand this is a human being trying to make something happen with their lives, and they're basically doing this to have some form of, I guess, some form of stability in their lives, and doing it in a fashion where they doing something that they love. And I think that's something that we take for granted a lot, especially as fans. Especially as people who are just out and about trying to do their due diligence. And you have that police officer out there, you have that firefighter out there, you have a pilot out there that's flying a plane, or Or, you have a cab driver. Believe it or not, cab drivers and Uber drivers who are out here, risking their lives to do right in this world. So it's much bigger than ball when you just look at the actual aspect of a human being trying to do something with themselves. And in some cases, they're really just trying to entertain us. And I'm looking at this like, wow, this is crazy when you think about it. But with that being said, prayers to Mr. Norris, prayers to his family. I heard his mom is here, and she went. I'm pretty sure she's there. Being there for him, and it's a scary moment. I mean, even with the situation, I didn't even speaking on the college level with Gerald Green when he was at Georgia Southern and he went down and he had to go to the hospital. That was crazy. Luckily, he came back and was able to play again, but you just never know. You know what I mean? You just never know. So, I always keep this stuff in perspective, and I love talking about the sport. I love playing, the sport, not whether it be physical, like when I'm out and about, with my friends or whatever, or if I'm playing it on a video game. I love playing and watching the sport. But this stuff right here is like, it's scary, man. It's scary. Your favorite player, they do the best they can to be the best they can be, and stuff like this can happen, in an instant. So I try to keep all this stuff in perspective and think about how precious this sport is, how precious life is, because stuff like this can happen and you just never know. But uh, y'all let me know what y'all think. This is not one of those type of videos I like to make. I like to try to talk about, the sport of football and how great it is or whatever. But, this right here it was a little scary, honestly. It really was. So let me know what you guys think. I'm going to get up out of here. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all in the next one. All right, y'all. I'm out. Peace.